Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And I've been on this kick for the last few videos and days following this President Donald Trump's national healthcare fraud takedown, the 2025 national healthcare fraud takedown. And if you all know or don't know, for years, whether it's hospitals, hospital administrators, doctors, Medicaid and Medicare fraud has been an issue for our federal and state governments for a very, very long time. There have been many doctors throughout the years that have gotten in trouble for Medicare and Medicaid fraud. Greed is the need to feed, and sometimes it can send smart individuals to jail or to prison. But now you're seeing these smart individuals that are creating these labs, whether it's DNA labs or specimen labs, and they get their payment reimbursements from Medicare and Medicaid also. So not only are you seeing hospitals, doctors, you're seeing laboratories and other ancillary services that are attached to healthcare that make their living and get their payments based on Medicaid and Medicare. So there is a huge budget. I want to, for those that don't know, the federal Medicare budget is one of the biggest budgets in our federal government in Washington, D.C. And of course, you know, we have an aging population. Everybody, and definitely once you get past 50, 55, two things you're going to hear all the time is Medicare and Social Security. What's going on with those two bundles? So this story is about another situation where a Raleigh man pleads guilty in a $60 million healthcare fraud kickback scheme. So we're going to get into that, but let's do a preview of what the Medicare program in our federal government is all about. So here's our history lesson. The federal Medicare program cost about $988 billion, just under $1 trillion in 2025 alone. That's a year. That makes it the single largest federal health program, bigger than Social Security, bigger than the defense spending, or interest on our national debt. That's how big Medicare is. That's why you see all these commercials and there's a huge bag and bundle of money in the Medicare program. So to put it in perspective, Medicare spending doubled between 2010 all the way up to 2023, growing from about $500 billion to $1 trillion. And it's expected to keep climbing. CBO projects Medicare costs to roughly double again to nearly $2 trillion by 2036, driven largely by an aging population and rising per beneficiary healthcare costs. The program is funded through a mix of sources: payroll taxes, general tax revenue, and premiums paid by beneficiaries themselves. So what is the scale of the Medicare problem? Medicare loses billions of dollars each year due to fraud, errors, and abuse, with estimates placing losses at approximately $60 billion a year. The Nonpartisan Government Accountability Office estimates that federal taxpayers lose between $233 billion and $521 billion annually to fraud across all federal programs. And Medicare ranks as the biggest loser, with $54 billion lost in improper payments. So what is the recovery gap when these improper payments are made either falsely, through error, or through deception? So despite enforcement efforts, the math is stark. The Department of Justice, the DOJ, recovered approximately $1.4 billion in healthcare fraud judgments and settlements in 2023, representing a recovery rate of less than 4%. 4%. So for every dollar that the government claws back, roughly $26 in improper payments go out the door. The bottom line: Medicare fraud is a massive, persistent problem measured in the tens of billions annually, and enforcement, while significant, recovers only a small fraction of what's lost. So, in giving you that preview, let's get into this new story about a Raleigh man who pled guilty in a $60 million healthcare fraud kickback scheme. The defendant, James SHUFORD Price III, 59 years old, of Raleigh, North Carolina, pleaded guilty in federal courts to paying illegal kickbacks for referrals to his California-based lab and filing a false federal tax return. Now, just in that part alone, it's amazing how this man is running a lab in California but lives in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's a red flag in and of itself. So how did the operation work? James SHUFORD Price III owned and operated Golden Star Labs, GSL, the acronym GSL, Golden Star Labs, a laboratory in Los Angeles. And between August of 2023 and June of 2025, the lab submitted more than 96 million in fraudulent claims to Medi-Cal and Medicare for testing related COVID-19, influenza, and RSV vaccinations. How did the scheme work? Golden Star Labs, GSL, paid more than 17 million to collectors in exchange for fake test samples from Medi-Cal and Medicare beneficiaries, samples that were obtained under fraudulent circumstances. Medi-Cal and Medicare for testing those fake samples. More than $60 million was annually paid out by the government programs as a result of these fraudulent claims. $60 million. And what was the cover-up? So James Price III directed GSL, which is, remember, Golden Star Labs, to enter written contracts with collectors specifying a fixed fee for services and prohibiting payments based on the volume or value of the referrals. Fake contracts meant to give the false appearance that GSL, Golden Star Labs, was complying with the law. However, the same kickback scheme with GSL paying collectors on a per specimen basis to induce referrals continued without regard to those phony contracts. And then he gets caught up in this web, and here comes the tax charges. In addition to healthcare fraud charges, James Price III admitted to filing a false federal income tax return for 2022 by failing to report income from multiple sources, including funds connected to a previous investment scam. It's amazing with these scams. These people are smart people to come up with these kinds of scams, and it's not easy. It takes homework and due diligence in the wrong direction to con and get over on our federal government. That is not an easy thing to do, and to be able to do it for multiple years and even trick the government out of millions of dollars, that's not easy. So that same energy and that same genius should have been directed in a more positive way, because he's going to end up in prison. So asset seizures during the investigation, federal agents seized more than $6 million in assets connected to the fraud. And here we go, people. This is your learning lesson. Chasing the bag by any means necessary, redirecting that genius, creative energy in the wrong direction instead of somewhere positive. This is what happens when the federal government and the FBI catch up with you. The FBI are super busy with the pandemic, the PPP scams, shell companies, and of course, Medicare fraud, Medicaid fraud. There are a lot of people out here trying to chase the bag by any means necessary. So his sentencing exposure. At sentencing, Mr. Price faces a statutory maximum of 13 years of imprisonment, a $500,000 fine, and 3 years of supervised release. Was it worth it? Price will also be required to pay restitution to the California Medical Assistance Program, which is called Medi-Cal, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the IRS, and others. And so in conclusion, just so you'll know, if one decides to be diabolical and wants to go into the level of criminality with fake companies or falsifying documents to get paid easily, these are the alphabet groups that went after this gentleman. The FBI Charlotte Field Office, Raleigh Resident Agency investigated a case in partnership with the IRS Criminal Investigation, Charlotte Field Office, etc. This case is part of the DOJ's 2026 National Healthcare Fraud Takedown Task Force. There are people out here making a ton of money, unfortunately, illegally and fraudulently, but eventually our federal government and this technological footprint that we have today, surveillance cameras, everything is done digitally. There is a background history, and it will all line up for the feds to figure out and the IRS to figure out that you have been fraudulently making claims or having shell companies that are not worth what they say they are. You're going to get caught. This technological universe that we live in today, it is hard to get away with a crime. So doing the right thing is the best thing to do. Tell me what you think. This has been a Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.